Hello there. Many years ago, during the 1990s, there were several movies that were coming out around the time of the Renaissance era for Disney. Many individual Disney movies, such as Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, The Lion King, and so on, became some of the greatest Disney movies of all time, and some movies that some individuals my age began to really love in their childhood. But today I want to talk about one in particular movie that was so amazing and so fantastic, but yet so dark and so criminally underrated that it has developed a cult following as of late. I am going to be talking about The Hunchback of Notre Dame. With this movie, we are going to be talking about the three main characters of the movie. That being the main protagonist, Quasimodo, the main villain, Judge Claude Frollo, and of course, the main centralized character being Esmeralda. Esmeralda is brought up in two different individual songs, technically three if you want to count A Guy Like You, which I do not count, by the way, because this is going to be a two-parter song, that being Heaven's Light and Hellfire. So today, I felt like it would be very important if we talked about the two titular songs, Heaven's Light and Hellfire, and discussed what the meaning is behind these two songs and how Esmeralda is affected in both of them. So without further ado, here we go. But first, as always, we start at the beginning. Esmeralda is considered a gypsy by Judge Claude Frollo. Gypsies obviously being street performers who go out into the streets to make money or try to acquire money as much as possible, either through being beggars, street performers, or just by straight stealing it, according to some individuals within the city of Paris. People throughout the entirety of Paris are very wary of the gypsies, convinced that they are burglars and thieves and they go around stealing precious items from everybody, and that they go around stealing precious jewels, necklaces, and just straight cash. When throughout this entire movie, we don't see an instance of that actually being a thing, just them being con artists or them being swindlers who just take people's money through games or pretending to be blind or whatever it is you want to do or you need to do to be able to live in Paris, because who has time to do that? As soon as the Festival of Fools comes into play, Esmeralda is the centralized figure that everybody focuses on. She does a fancy performance. Quasimodo is mesmerized by her beauty, and Judge Claude Frollo is very furious by her and by her provocative performance, calling it a disgusting display. Over time, Quasimodo reveals himself to the world accidentally after Esmeralda tries to pull his whole face off, thinking it's a mask, and Quasimodo is then thrown onto a stage, and everybody laughs at him and mocks him after they tie him down and start throwing tomatoes at his face. Which these are valuable goods. What are you doing? Esmeralda does not like the idea that all these people are seemingly targeting Quasimodo simply for how he looks, and Judge Claude Frollo obviously is not doing anything about the situation because he feels like Quasimodo needs to learn a lesson for betraying him. Over the course of a couple of minutes, there's this whole performance being played out by Esmeralda as she escapes the guards after she frees Quasimodo and declares Judge Claude Frollo to be an actual true villain and a true fiend, because the man obviously has no love for Quasimodo and would rather him be tortured in the middle of the Festival of Fools rather than help him, considering, he is a person who is in great distress and actively calling for Frodo's help. Storm clouds start to roll around, thunder starts to strike, and rain starts to pour on everyone. Quasimodo retreats back into Notre Dame to try and find some sort of seclusion and get away from the crowd. Esmeralda also conveniently finds herself inside of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and she ends up having a reasonable sword fight with our good boy Phoebus with a reasonably sized candelabra. After Phoebus and Esmeralda have a little talk together and start flirting a little bit, Frollo declares for Phoebus to arrest her while she's inside of the church, and he declares that she has sanctuary, so there's nothing he can really do. Archdeacon obviously steps in and says, oh, she has sanctuary, she's allowed in here, y'all can't be here. But Frollo manages to get behind her and openly declares her of having witchcraft and accuses her of twisting his mind with unholy thoughts, and that's why he's feeling lust towards Esmeralda, and it's not good. Esmeralda then sings God Help the Outcasts in a voice that is definitely not Demi Moore's, and Quasimodo is essentially falling in love with Esmeralda, and he talks to her after she follows him up the bell towers of Notre Dame and figures out how he's living, where he's living, and what his situation is. Quasimodo, over the course of this entire time, is talking to Esmeralda as if she and he are both just two regular people. She's interested in his sculptures, she's interested in the bells, she's interested in everything that happens to be a part of Notre Dame. And for the first time in his life, Quasimodo feels like he's just a regular person. He's not like this horrifying monster that everybody in the entirety of Paris claims that he is, or at least what Frollo claims that everybody will think of him if he ever steps out into the real world. Quasimodo then, over the course of this entire time hanging out with Esmeralda, is now seeing that he's just a regular person and she sees him as a regular guy. Quasimodo then sees this as an opportunity to help Esmeralda, just like how she helped him with escaping the stage and during the Festival of Fools. He helps her escape the Notre Dame Cathedral. He escorts her down through the rooftops and starts crossing rooftop after rooftop, going down many sculptures, and ends up on the streets of Paris, just outside of the perimeter where the guards are currently doing their rounds. But Esmeralda does want to see Quasimodo again. Regardless, Esmeralda is now free from the Notre Dame prison. Quasimodo sees this as heaven's light shining upon him, hence the words heaven's light. She is heaven's light in this instance. She is the only person throughout the entirety of this world who has not looked down upon him, who has not thought that he is a monster, who has not thought that Quasimodo is the most evil and devilish thing to come out of existence. He sees this as someone of heaven's light shining upon him and making him feel like he's an actual person, not a monster. Meanwhile, on the other side of Paris, we have Judge Claude Frollo, who has his own song relaying about the situation. Throughout the entirety of the song Hellfire, he expresses his desire to have Esmeralda, but he is a very holy man. In the actual novelizations and many of the stage plays, he's actually a bishop, or in this case, a priest, and in this variation, he is a judge, but regardless of the fact, he is still a holy man. He is so holy that he thinks that there are only two situations to handle this, and that is either to have Esmeralda married to him forcefully, or to kill her to repent for his sins of feeling lust towards another individual. In one hand, he gets his free wife, and he feels repent for his lust towards another woman by marrying her, and on the other hand, he feels that he could repent by murdering the very individual that caused him to feel lust in the first place. It is a very terrifying situation overall, which quite literally only strengthens his resolve whenever he literally looks into the fire of his fireplace and sees Esmeralda flowing through the flames, and then decides to burn her scarf as a final order to actually have Esmeralda killed and to actually go after her, find her, and destroy all of Paris if he must, to find this one individual woman who has caused him so much pain. So through the perspective of the main character and the main villain, we have two different opposite ends of the spectrum. One who sees her as a light of heaven that has touched upon him and has given him the good grace to believe that he is an actual person, and another seeing her as the literal devil seducing him with pure lust and passion that will cause him to deny the glory and the grace of God and turn him over to darkness. And overall, I think that is very interesting, and I felt like that I really wanted to talk about that because these two characters are complete opposite ends of the spectrum, despite the fact that Quasimodo was quite literally raised by Judge Claude Frollo for all these years in the church. Regardless, however, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed this content. Please hit that notification bell and that subscribe button if you wish, and I will see you later. Goodbye.